Mr. Ray Jakeman, also known as the Golf PT. Welcome to the podcast.
Good afternoon.
How's things, pal? You been well?
Yeah, they're not too bad, thank you. Yeah. As you well know, young family. So the bags under the eyes are real, guys. It's not just the bad shades. But yeah, the bags under the eyes are real. Yeah, life is all good though. Thank you.
Good. Well, the sun is shining today. We're recording this on a 30-degree heat day, and it is absolutely boiling in my office. I don't know about you two boys, but I'm sweating here.
I've got a tower fan next to me that you can't see, just well positioned, so it's just blasting me.
Oh, you've got the updated technology.
Oh, very nice, very nice. I guess it's warm. It's warm. Let's put it that way.
It's super warm. So we want to have a good chat through some topics today. One of them being like family and business and how you've balanced them off. But I think we start, as we always do on this, we're giving you a bit more of a formal introduction, but just for the listeners out there, give us a brief background of you and what you're doing at the minute and how you got into that.
Yeah, cool. So I suppose my background is so I'm a strength and conditioning coach by trade, so slightly different to maybe some of the predominance of the audience, or just a different qualification really. So first and foremost, I'm a husband, father of two, as well as running the business on the side. Of that is probably the best way of putting it, and very much for me, try and see it that way. Everything supports that. But yeah, from a more business and work point of view, I am a strength and conditioning coach. I worked at the University of Birmingham for the best part of 10 years as a strength and conditioning coach there. Started off as a junior position and then eventually became boss, and also did consults and contracts for things like the RFL, the RFU, and a few other bits and pieces as well, and dabbled in a few other sports as well. And then we're mid 2022, probably best part of about 18 months ago, kind of took the decision, as we'll probably talk about a bit more in further along, to leave the university and fully step into the private world, having done that on the side of the work at the university as well. So yeah, that's probably it in a bit of a snapshot. Probably best part of scarily now 15 years worth of experience of actual coaching. Started when I did my degree and kind of haven't really looked back since then.
Good. Yeah. I like it when people give a nice, short, sharp background to themselves, and I think that wraps it up nice. And I want it for people to hear as well that you've been in the employed sector doing strength and conditioning coaching to a very high level as well, and then have decided to take a plunge into self-employed and start your own business for real and go for it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. So I worked in. So I've always, I suppose, best way of putting it is I've always, when I started out as an S&C coach, I kind of did like 3 or 4 kind of placements, work experience things as I was doing my master's degree. And so I had a few plates spinning at once. Then I got the role at Birmingham, which was only a kind of an 8-hour a week, 12-hour a week, term time only contract. So I was gym instructing on the side, bit of leisure management ops as well at the same time as doing a master's degree, which was a drive down to London 1 day a week at Middlesex. So shout out to anybody who did the MSc there or is looking at it. So that was a nice long Wednesday while doing maybe 8 hours a week at the university, trying to hone a craft and get my foot wedged firmly in the door, and also did some work experience on top. So I suppose there's always been quite a few plates spinning. And then when I got the job at the university, and it was probably only a 16-hour week contract, there was a few other bits and pieces still going on at the same time. So I've always, I suppose, to some extent, had a side hustle, if you want of a better thing. So I quite early picked up an RFU contract, which I did for 4 years as a self-employed S&C coach alongside being employed. Then that finished because the RFL redistributed their funding, and that's kind of where the Golf PT started, really. And that was what we're 2022. That's probably it's the concept as such is probably about 6, maybe 7 years old, maybe 6 years old, and kind of ran it for definitely 3 years on the side, not really doing it, just enjoying it. And then, took the leap of faith 18 months ago. Well, I suppose decided a little bit longer beforehand. And there was an opportunity at the university for voluntary redundancy. And kind of applied, got accepted, took it, and haven't looked back since.
Right. And I guess let's start with some of that then. Let's start with your journey as a self-employed, full-on, the golf PT business, full steam ahead. How's that journey been for you?
Well, as you well know, mate, Matt, you two probably might have conversed between, and Paul's been like, what? I'm working with this bloke and he's doing me nothing.
Matt's heard it all before in terms of like, he's heard every challenge in the book.
Oh, mate, yeah, it is nuts, isn't it? Like running your own business and those kind of bits and pieces. I think the big thing is the big appreciation I didn't have before leaving the university is I always had that security of that salary coming in. And the business was very much a side thing where I earned reasonable money for it, but it was, you got to the end of the tax year, I paid my tax and I had a bit of cash left over, and we took a chunk off the mortgage, we paid off a credit card a little bit, we went on a holiday, or those kind of bits and pieces. It was very much on top. And then when you kind of take the leap of faith and you sat there and you're like, right, I've not got a paycheck coming in this month and I'm only earning this month, and you're like, right, okay, yeah, it's a bit of a out of the frying, well, not even out of the frying pan and into the fire. It's like literally sat on a worktop into the fire, kind of thing. Yeah, just bypass the frying pan and go straight into the fire.
Straight in.
Yeah. So it's been an interesting ride, as you well know, very up and down. And I suppose with my background from an S&C point of view, very critical thinker, big map out kind of stuff, work backwards from targets and stuff like that, and very critical and analytical. So when you start to you almost have to give yourself a leeway, don't you, when you're in your own business, not to kind of just put your feet up and chill, but you almost have to give yourself a couple of mulligans from a golfing term. You have to kind of accept that, you know what, it's not always going to be perfect, but doing something's better than doing nothing, and moving the needle in the right direction is better than not doing anything, which is easy for me to sit here on a Friday afternoon. Monday morning can be a bit more difficult. Ask me again on Monday.
That's a really good point. It changes day to day, doesn't it?
Oh, huge.
A lot
huge.
of it is like, you know,
I think that's one of the big things
today.
That's one of the big things that I think people have to learn early on, don't they? It's almost like even if what you're doing day to day doesn't change much, it's how your emotions change day to day, and how you're feeling about what you're doing, and how you're feeling about the outcomes that you're experiencing, because you might be doing all the right things day in, day out, but on the days where you see that manifest in a result, you feel amazing. And then for the 2 weeks where you see nothing, it's like, what am I doing wrong? And it's riding that as well. I think that's really difficult when you make that jump, understanding those emotions and how to handle them.
Yeah, it definitely comes down to that concept of everybody thinks it's all about motivation. I've got to be motivated. No, that's rubbish. I'm not try not to swear on the podcast, because I don't know if that's a big bleep or not.
Fully allowed. Do not worry.
But yeah, you got to give yourself a break. And actually, it's motivation is going to do that. And like, that's, I suppose, from my background, everybody perceives as a strength and conditioning coach, oh, you've worked with elite athletes, it's easy. Your life is easy because they want it. They really want it. That is bullshit. I'm sorry, but when, especially coming from a student market or student general, like typically my specialism has been kind of that 14 to 18 to 22 transitional development, when it's a Thursday morning and they've been out on sports night on a Wednesday night and they're hungover as buggery, or they've this, that, or the other, they've got big exams coming up and they're just being pulled like all of everybody's clients are. Yeah, motivation isn't it. It's all about discipline and that kind of having that kind of end goal in mind of, right, well, this is where I want to be in 12 months, 18 months, 24 months. Paul's nodding his head thinking, yeah, this is all the stuff I've told you, and you're finally starting to listen to me, dude. But yeah, it's very much a case of, I think that's been the biggest highlight for me is, and I know conversations we've had, Paul, like, there are days where it sucks and it's really hard and the graft is hard. And like we spoke about, I think on Monday, it's kind of a combination of hard work. I can't remember what the sprinklings of joy, and I can't remember what the other one was, but it's
not mine. This was something that we spoke about in our recent mentor session, that there's hard work, there's graft, there's sacrifice, but if there's no joy in there, if there's no sprinklings of joy, I think I called it, it starts to get tougher and tougher and tougher. And it isn't all just about hard work and sacrifice. You have to be enjoying the journey. That's a big part of it. And when you're coaching people, I guess, like S&C clients or PT clients, you got to be thinking about that, is that you're asking them to do hard work and sacrifice. It has to be enjoyable. The journey has to be fun as well. Otherwise they'll give up. Yeah.
Yeah, it definitely has been the biggest, probably, I suppose, biggest realization I didn't have beforehand.
Yeah. So what have been the biggest learnings for you in the last 12 months? So how long is it you've been now fully self-employed as the golf PT?
So it would have been April of 2021 was when I left the university. Well, April 2021 was the start of being fully me. No university employment. VR paid. Thank you very much. Hand everything back. Job done. I don't know. There's probably been so many that when you sit there and I suppose what kind of the best part of 14 months later on, and I'm still relatively young into that journey. I think that's probably the biggest. It still has to go back to the biggest one of giving yourself a break, but I think then having those goals and targets and trying to set yourself some realistic kind of things that you want to achieve and what you want to do, but then also giving yourself a break, because you go on social media and you listen to whoever it is, whether it be another mentor, whether it be another coach that you might look up to, respect, a contemporary. I'm not a massive fan of competitors because I think there's a big enough market for everybody out there. If you don't have a market, you don't do it, and you have to look a little bit inwards and go, well, hang on a minute, what am I offering? What's the service that I'm offering? Is it good enough? Because actually, if it's pants, then do you know what? Yeah, they are your competitor, but they're just going to wipe the floor with you. So I'd definitely say much more of a contemporary rather than a competitor, which is a relatively new thing as well. Try not to see everybody as the enemy, and actually almost taking the rose tinted spectacles off and kind of like everything's amazing, everything's brilliant. You got to go from like 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. All of a sudden you're earning 100K in a year and you've been doing it for 3 months, and you're like, that ain't real. Like, personal experiences, end of my accounts is literally like 10 days away. So you can go on Company's House and you can prove the point that isn't happening over here, but not just yet anyway. But it's like, it's that kind of, everybody expects it to be very linear, very quick, and it's easy.
And in terms of biggest wins, I think there's some really good learning points for people. The journey isn't linear. If you're a new trainer, coach, business owner now, and the first year or two is going to be up and down, and it is about managing emotions and being able to stay on the path and not get distracted, not get overwhelmed by what everybody else is doing. It really doesn't matter. Like you said, contemporaries rather than people who you're competing against. It really doesn't need to be like that. What would you say have been your biggest wins?
I'm such a critic of myself that I tend not to look at them. I know that sounds really daft, but I suppose ultimately, like, I'm coming to the end of my first full year in my books. Okay, I might be a little bit down on where I was last year, but everything, I think the big thing, and this is probably looking maybe the last 18, 24 months with everything that's gone on in the world, is I've survived and thrived through COVID. Thrive maybe is a bit of a stretch, but the two clients I was playing, one client I was playing with them, kind of one semi long-term on and off client, because of a role he's taken. This morning, with it, like I picked up through COVID because of Paul, and like you were still able to pick up clients and move forward from that point of view. And I think the biggest win has got to be still being here, and when it would have been very, very easy during lockdown and COVID to just go, do you know what? Nah. I'm not going to take VR first and foremost from the university, and I'm just going to sit there on a pretty good salary, on a relatively good, in a great position, on a good salary with a nice pension, like pension being paid in for. Fortunate that universities still pay out good pensions, really, compared to other people. You kind of look at all those kind of things. So, well, that's easy, which you don't have now. So yeah, it'd be very easy to do that. And I suppose not giving up with a young family. Crumbs, you kind of sit there and you go like, right, my wife's coming towards the end of her like mat leave. She's starting to come towards stat mat leave. So it's like you need to start looking, and everything's going up in the world, obviously cost wise, and right, everybody's feeling a pinch at the moment. You're like, right, okay, yeah. I think still being in it and still doing it and still enjoying it for most of the time. There are days obviously where it sucks, but the good, like it is majority good. I think it's probably the biggest win overall.
Just to jump in off the back of, I've sort of been holding back this question just to see how much more you give away before I ask it. But having had that comfortable job at the university and COVID and all of that, and you've even talked about pensions and stuff, which people don't often think about. Why did you originally? I thought you just made the jump because there was this chance for like you can get the voluntary redundancy and that's you, job done. But why have you stuck to it? Why do you think that you didn't just throw the towel in? What is it that you're getting out of it maybe that doesn't show up on a balance sheet or something like that? What's it doing for you, or what's it leading towards maybe that keeps you wanting to fight in that game, do you think?
Oh yeah. Yeah, you're back, Matt. To kind of go through that, I think, well, first and foremost, I was running the business. So I was doing 20 hours a week at the university, plus running the business on top of it. When we had our first child, so George, our eldest, who's 2.5 now, we had our first little one then, and it was just it's probably not a conversation me and Paul have really spoke about, but it was hard graft. There was some good success from a business point of view and client success, but there was no joy whatsoever. Without going into a long story and woe was me, there was like some quite big personal kind of things going on in the life at the same time. New family, wife on mat leave. I literally, this was my start of the week. I would be in the gym at the university 7 o'clock in the morning to coach. I would coach through to 1 o'clock. I'd then get my lunch, go into a meeting at 1:30 till about 2:30. I'd then probably bit of admin for maybe an hour and a half till about 4 o'clock. And then typically I'd do clients 4 till 9, get home at like 9:30, 9:45. Tuesday morning back in the gym for 7:15, would run through till about 4 or 5 o'clock-ish, maybe train, careful. And then we'll go to a golf club and do a workshop, come home again, 8:30 on a Tuesday night. Wednesday morning, I'd then go back into the gym and do my own clients. So that was Wednesday morning, I'd probably be 9 till 1-ish, own clients, maybe train again, then come home. So basically I'd walk out the door pretty much at 7 o'clock in the morning and probably get home at about 1:30, 2 o'clock on a Wednesday afternoon. And you're like, Thursday, back into the gym, 7 o'clock the next morning, probably repeat Monday. Friday, maybe a repeat of Wednesday. And then I'd work probably most Saturdays as well. And you're like, yeah, hang on a minute. And there are definite things, and like me and my wife have definitely spoke about this. And I know she's a big believer in not regretting things, but it's definitely a phase in my life I regret and look back on and go, wow, actually, I needed to take, that, I mean, that's where mentoring and those kind of bits and pieces would have been amazing at that point. Just to take that zoomed out approach and just that kind of, hang on a minute, Ray. Whoa, hang on a minute. Look at that, like seesaw balance, like life, personal, work, those kind of bits and pieces, way out of kilt. And it kind of hit me quite hard. Then we went into COVID and lockdown, not that long. I think George was maybe 3 months old when we went into lockdown in the March of 2020. And that was actually brilliant. I know it sounds really daft because it was a real horrific time for a lot of people. And that's me. There was a lot of empathy and sympathy who went through some really hard, like I lost family members through it. Well, lost one family member to COVID eventually. We were fortunate in our family to be not too badly hit by it. But actually, that lockdown where I couldn't go into work, I had to be at home, and I actually got some time to spend with my wife, my new son, was amazing. And the relationship I have with my 2-year-old now would not be the same if COVID hadn't happened. Like completely wouldn't be. So actually, it was that point just went, hang on a minute, hands up. You've been a knob for the last 3 months. Rein it in. And it was then the kind of conversation for me and my wife, right? Well, actually, very loosely, VR came up on the table probably later that year. And it was one of those ones of, didn't really speak to anybody about work about it. Me and Han had a bit of a chat about it. Could we make this work? What's the risk? And it was just like, do you know what? As great as the university is and the job and the athletes, the coaches I got to work with, that's not belittling that in whatsoever. It just wasn't working anymore. And ultimately, at 10 years of work there, I kind of went, do you know what? Actually, I need to take a slightly new direction, tangent. I've got this business that I've been running for the last few years. I've got some decent clients that I work with. Fortunately, COVID, I lost a few of them, managed to gain a few, thankfully, but was probably still net down. So it was still a bit of a gamble, but you kind of go, well, the VR payment, that's covered our mortgage potentially for a year at worst case. We might have to live off baked beans and stuff like that for 6 to 12 months, but we've done it before. That's how we got our house deposit. It's been done, a little bit of sacrifice for the joy. So yeah, it was very much a case of that balance, long story, of the balance of family to work, and ultimately like Thursdays now I don't work in the morning. I don't start till like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and I spend the day with my wife and my 2 sons because George doesn't go to nursery. And it was definitely that kind of family's got to come first. Ultimately, everything we do, we don't live to work, we work to live. And I'm a massive believer in it. Was something when really long story, I went down from full-time to part-time at the university, and I went from full-time to 3 days a week. I sat down with my boss then and went, at the moment I'm S&C coach, I might train, and then I'm a husband, in that order. That isn't right. It's just not right. And he's got a young person, little he had 2, did Darren have 2? In one, or I think he might have had a second on the way. Another coach that I worked with was doing exactly the same kind of thing. Him and his wife, they were in the process of trying. So it was just one of those of like, hang on a minute. I was fortunate I was in a position then 5 years ago to go part-time. And then it was almost that same reality check hit again. And COVID hit me, and I was like, hang on a minute, I've not really spent any time. How many straight up numbers, Paul will smirk at this. How many nappies have I changed in his first 3 months? Probably not many. Have I done a pack of nappies? Probably, if that. Hang on a minute, he's 3 months old. He goes through a pack in a week and a half, if that. So yeah, you're like, hang on a minute, am I pulling my weight here from a family point of view? No. Yeah, the income's great, but do you know what? The life sucks. So yeah, that was the reason in a long about way.
I love that. First of all, I love the way you broke down your performance as a dad into measurable nappy changes, typical strength coach style.
Yeah. Give me a data, give me a metric to work to.
And I think for anybody who listened to that full story, because I've heard bits of that, but not in full the way you've just described it, is a really powerful message for people to understand that it takes a lot of strength to take a step back from everything and think. And COVID was horrendous, definitely, but for a lot of people, probably that break they needed to step back and go, am I enjoying this? Is this something I want to do forever? Or do I need to start making some adjustments? And just really getting into that, connecting with why it's important to you and why make the change. And I don't want to say money shouldn't be involved, because it should. Like you have to look at the financial aspects of starting and running a business, but it's a hell of a lot more than that. And if you get the money, you want all the other stuff on top as well. So it sounds like you've just made a good decision for your life and your family and yourself at the right time.
Yeah, look, like I probably there's the meme and the things that go around on Instagram and the reels at the moment of kind of, I left my 9 to 5 to work what I want. I now work 24/7, and there's normally an expletive and somebody face planting or something like that, where they've gone from an easy job to being something else. Look, I work as hard, if not harder, than I ever did at the university. That's through no like motivation or anything like that. And I looking at the money that I'm earning at the moment, it is less overall package. If I was to sit there 5 years ago, my full-time employment, 5 days a week, 40-hour contract, I'm earning less money than I am at the moment. However, it's 12:37 on a Friday morning. I've played 18 holes of golf with 2 clients, and I'm now sat on a podcast doing it like with you boys. And I played 9 holes the other night. So it's and spent the day with my son yesterday. Well, we're gonna go and do something over the weekend. It's that balance, if that makes sense, of you don't actually take that zoomed out look and just be a bit reflective. And this is where I disagree with. I know there is one eminent business mentor. I won't mention names. It's the one thing I do disagree with. What he talks about is about work to life balance, and it might have changed, but listening and looking at some of the stuff, he's very much and I'm pretty sure he's quoted it is, I don't believe in a work to life balance. You work to get to where you want to then have the life you want. And I suppose I've got 2 young boys. I'm in a different position to he is, so there is a different in that point of view. Do you know what? If I don't earn £250,000 a year, but I get to see my kids grow up, then great.
I think it's contextual as well. I think having my boys are a little bit older. Matt has 2 boys as well, and his are kind of a little bit older than yours, and then mine are a little bit older again. As they're getting older now, I was just saying to Matt before we hit record, we've just been away at Centre Parks for a holiday, and my boys were quite independent. Yeah. So you do start to get more time back as they change as well. So if you're a dad or a mum out there running a business, I think at certain times in the kids' lives, you want to be around a lot. Like when they're little, I wanted to be there all the time. But as they're getting older, they kind of got their own interests and things. And I'm starting to notice that my time is more flexible. And then I'm like, do you know what? I could get my teeth into a bigger business project right now and start to really kick on. And so it changes as time goes on as well. Don't think if you're a mum or a dad out there running a business, you're like, oh my God, this is how it's going to be forever. Think of what's important to you now, and make sure you're doing that kind of stuff as well as looking ahead to building something for the future. What's important now? Because it will change and you don't get that time back.
Yeah, that's happened to you with your boys still at a relatively young age though, Paul, isn't it? It's not like you've had to wait until they turn 18 to reach that point.
No, my 2 are 9 and 7, so they're not old. They're still young. Yeah.
And what that should probably show people is that early phase really is important then, isn't it? Because it doesn't last as long as you think. You know, we've sort of assumed that they're not going to be independent until like the teenagers and stuff. But it just goes to show you that, you know, it happens probably a lot younger than you think. So if you do want to be around, be around.
It is the blink of an eye, believe me. It goes so fast and you don't get it back. So make sure that you are, if you want to being an amazing dad is one of your goals, then do it. But don't be afraid as well sorry, we're going on to dad stuff here. We'll get back to strength and conditioning in a second.
No.
But
this is the important reality, isn't it, of running a business and being your own boss and those kind of bits and pieces, isn't it?
Yeah, and remember that your kids are watching all the time. So I've got no problem with saying to my kids, Daddy's got a work project on, you know, I'm not going to be around as much for the next few days. But I tell you what, in 3 days' time, we're going to have a whole day of fun, just us. And mapping that out and communicating with your kids, not just assuming I'm going to go to work and that's what dad's role is. Make sure you're communicating with your family. And I think that's maybe something you've really picked up on in the last 12 months as well, like communication with your wife and your kids and all of it.
Yeah, I think that don't get time back. Well, that's ultimately the whole reason why I left. Well, the pretty eminent reason for leaving university and taking that leap of faith is probably the best way of kind of, hang on a minute, where's the first 3 months gone? Where's the first 6? Like, put that into weeks. Where's the first 12 weeks gone? Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
He was born, and then that was, you're like, hang on a minute, it's only 12 weeks, but I'm never getting that back, kind of thing, really.
Yeah.
Well, not even really. Yeah, you're not getting it back.
S&C coaching. This is a topic I wanted to chat about with the three of us. You're a very technical coach. Like, you could hear it in your mate, you know, how many nappies have I changed? Like, you're really performance based, and that's awesome. Like, that technical side of you, I've noticed, is really strong. But I think your customer service is really good as well, which you don't always get those two things hand in hand, if we're being honest. I know Matt will probably agree with me here. You usually see a really technically strong coach who cannot do customer service and communication, or vice versa. So how do you blend those two things, and do you think one's more important? I just wanted to get your opinion on it.
No, definitely not. Like, you like, ultimately you can know everything in the world, but if you can't communicate it, well, it's useless. Like straight up, you could be the best coach in the world, but if you can't communicate that across, however that be, whether it be verbal, written, soft, like that, you name it. So I think that's important. I suppose ultimately, for like, you do a lot of technical, like, like for my background, like, ultimately to get where I got to, which, to be honest, was good, but like there's loads more layers and levels you go, kind of thing, for down that rabbit hole, if that makes sense. Was in a pretty good position at the university. Some that work in NGBs and the national governing body, and kind of elite sport snub universities, because it's university, it's students. But I mean, ultimately, I was blessed to work with, at one point, the men's and women's under 23 800 meter world champions, the best under 23 800 meter runner, men's and women's, in the world. One went to Tokyo, and you, like, multiple, like the other ones. Like, we at the University of Birmingham were fortunate that the performance team there were offering the equivalent to what you get in an NGB, and in some regards better, because we could, and we had more time, and it wasn't a case of remote. We had a big performance gym, physio room next to us, our office on that now, same floor. You had a nutritionist, a sports psychologist, physios, 5 S&C coaches. You had a physiology lab right next to us, those kind of bits and pieces. So the level of service was that. So the technical skills had to be good, but to get there, like ultimately, I've got a degree in sport and exercise science. I've got a master's degree in strength and conditioning. I'm then UKSCA accredited, which I suppose is the equivalent to PT, like a PT qualification. But rather than it coming from, again, I'm not a PT from a training point of view, so I might get this wrong, but coming from my outside knowledge is you've got multiple different providers of a PT qualification, and you're starting to see it pop up as an S&C coach now, partly because it's not a protected title. But ultimately, the main one in the UK is the UK Strength and Conditioning Association, is the accreditation, and I'm accredited by them. So I think the technical level of knowledge to go through those kind of hoops is massive. Like to get a master's degree in it, it's a level, what is it, level 8 qualification or something like that, 7, 8 qualification or something like that.
High up.
So like the level of technical knowledge to do that is pretty cool. However, there's been a massive move in the strength and conditioning world over the last 5-10 years, really. That get that, tick the box, happy days. But then can you coach it? And I can't remember for the life of me who it is, because I've done some of his courses. He doesn't follow me, so thankfully he won't probably see this or kill me for it. But there's and I don't know him personally, but I've just done some of his workshops, but very much around kind of learning to teach people how to things. So it's almost going back to school and becoming a teach. I'm fortunate in the fact that I was a coach beforehand. So I used to coach hockey to an okay level. I've done a bit of athletics coaching, these kind of bits and pieces. I did a bit of gym instructing and some low level stuff. So I've always done that since I was 16, because it's kind of training has always been a bit of an interest to me. So I suppose for me personally, I've been fortunate in that I've just taken it for granted, because I used to coach hockey, and that's pretty simple. Hit that thing in that goal, win, boom.
Would you say you naturally lean towards one side or the other, like the customer care coaching part or technical knowledge, or you slap bang in the middle? Sounds like you're almost bang in the middle.
Yeah, probably. I probably sway. I know some of the guys that I used to work with at the university probably would say my technical knowledge could probably be better, because I know there was a couple of people that are really, really, really clever, make me look like I've just about scraped a pass in a GCSE exam. I was fortunate there were two guys there that I'm not going to name them, because I don't want to get their heads too big if they listen to it, just because it'll wind them up. There were two guys there that are just stupidly clever and knew loads, and multiple other people there that did it as well. So I suppose I was always blessed in that position, that for me, that I found the softer side, the meeting athletes, greeting, and those kind of bits and pieces pretty easy. I've always tried to work on the technical side. Personally.
Good. Yeah, and it's for people listening, if you're a coach, both sides are important in my opinion. Like you have to have both. It's not downplaying either one. You can't just be amazing at customer service and shit at what you do. Like you have to have both. But if all you've got is a journey to the result, and it isn't a good experience for the client, you don't make it an enjoyable experience through your customer care and your coaching ability, that's not great either. So it does need to be, in my opinion, a bit of a blend of the two. And not to make your head too big, but I think you get that blend pretty much spot on, if I'm being honest. That's something that you've got a real strength in.
Yeah, I try. Like I've always said, like the mantra for the golf PT is, and I'm saying this to you the other day, and to like the guys that I play golf with this morning, is ultimately every client golfer that I work with, I want them. The aim is to help them play better golf, enjoy their golf games for longer, as well as leading a healthy lifestyle. That's the kind of what I want, the mission statement, I suppose.
Yeah.
It's worded slightly differently. I've messed that up a little bit, but never mind. Well done. But the other thing I want is every time a client walks out and this is a bit of a random one, I've always said this, I want every client to walk out and go, that was a good session, but I could go for a pint with him. If you're a drinker or what, like however you are, like coffee, however you want, like decaf coffee, if you don't drink, like, pint of water, Christ, it's easier. But I want a client to walk out and go, do you know what? I could go for a beer with him and we could have a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's really good. And vice versa as well. We always used to do interview. I remember being asked a few times, we'd interview trainers to bring them in. And that was sometimes the litmus test at the end. If we were unsure, we'd always go to each other. Could you go for a pint with them? Yeah. And if the answer was no, they didn't get in. That was it. If you were unsure, it was, can you spend, an evening at the bar chatting to this person. If you really didn't want to spend time with them, probably not a good fit. Yeah.
That's all technical ability out the window at that point.
Yeah.
If you took how good they are technically away, what's left?
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna change direction a little bit here, because I'm the outsider in this conversation, so I feel I'm the best person to take it this way. So I'm going to ask you what role mentorship has played in your journey, because you've already touched on it, you've already alluded to it. Paul is your mentor, so I can sort of steer you that way. If I'm going to pin this down to a couple of questions, let me try and do this succinctly. Why did you seek out the help of a mentor? And what has it helped you with in sort of the biggest ways?
I'm a crap businessman, first and foremost. It's probably the best way of putting it. No, look, I think we go back to those kind of points there. We've alluded to it already, is like, you've got to have good technical knowledge. You need to have good client care, which kind of comes into it. But then there is ultimately a business that's running at the end of the day. And if it isn't not looking to make millions and millions, but it's like, if you're not making money, then it doesn't work, if that makes sense. And it was always been an area of mine of again, critically thinking, looking at it and going, right, these are all the strands that I've got. Right, well, that's if I like to use the analogy of spinning plates a lot. So spinning plate, technical knowledge, pretty big, spins pretty smoothly, is good. Top up with CPD course very often. Customer care, kind of actually being a decent bloke, touch wood, clients will tell me. Paul hopefully nodding his head going, yeah, not bad. That's a decent sized plate and spinning pretty good. At the moment, the business side it's a really tiny plate, and it's right on the raggedy. Well, it was right on the raggedy edge, and it needed the TLC. And a few of Paul's clients who I'm fortunate to met. Nat, I did a podcast with Nat Lowe in COVID, I think, and then Ollie Lee, another all golf related, supported by Paul, and mentioned and reached out, and I was like, do you know, actually, for me to take the business not even to the next step, to me to actually really solidify the business, which means then I don't have the stresses of going, well, hang on a minute, this month I've only earned 1,600 quid, and I really need 1,800 quid in the bank to pay for this, and this. It helps take those stresses away. Well, it helps. That was it, is to try and get that position there. And yeah, again, it's then starting to have someone to bounce ideas off. And so I think ultimately it was definitely the area of the business, or me, if you like me, the business, that was weak, and I needed coaching. I needed the support, if that makes sense. Right. So no different to a golfer coming and seeing me and going, mate, I really ache after playing 9 holes of golf. Like, this doesn't work. Great putter, but I can't hit anything else. How do I stop my back hurting? How do I stop? Yeah, right, that kind of stuff.
So is that more from like, is it for you in terms of the business side? Has it been like an organizational thing? Has it been like a systems thing? Has it been how you actually present and sell your business? Like, what specifically do you think you've taken most from that experience?
I think there was definitely some systems in there, if that makes sense. I think first and foremost, sitting down and going, right, where are we now? Where do you want to get to? And that is definitely really moved probably over the last week, I suppose, or not necessarily moved, but kind of got a bit grey and fuzzy, I suppose, is probably the best way. I think Paul might agree with that. Or a bit blurry around the vision, edges, not in a bad way, but a stop, check, review, where are we at kind of thing. So it was definitely that kind of sitting down, right, well, actually, what are you wanting to try and do? What are the markers we then need to put in for that? And then actually then looking at, all right, what are the systems we need to do? So simple things of moving. I was very much either a block or cash payer, and probably 90% of my business one-to-one is now on standing orders. So that then brings the solidifying. Actually, you go, right, well, I'm earning this much a month standing order income, as long as you don't mess it up. And clients are getting what they want. They're going to obviously keep going and moving in that right direction as the situation changes, and then you can obviously flip. That's probably been the biggest monetary and obvious outcome, if that makes sense. But then the other one is like, do you know what, when you are having Paul's probably going to have a very wry smile, and there's a few grey hairs on his head probably from this for the last few months, but becoming a new dad again and having it's almost just been a bit of a tether to kind of pull you back and nudge you back in, sitting in and go, hang on a minute, this is absolutely rubbish. What the hell is happening here? And almost having a head off moment. Because I am still new to it. I'm still learning and almost learning to manage my expectations. I class myself as a toddler in the business world, if that makes sense. Because you're kind of very volatile and exposure, like volatile to your surroundings and what's happening. It's just been good from that kind of point of view. And then also it's been a validation check of, right, well, hang on, and here's a project I like the idea of going down. Does that sound okay? Yeah. Can you have a read through this? Yeah, that makes sense. But you're missing this, this, and this, because you've got the experience to go, yeah, well, I did that 10 years ago and actually that doesn't work, or the market shifted, or those kind of bits and pieces.
Yeah, cool. You touched on some really good points there that I think people don't often understand is part of the relationship you have with a mentor, and some of the stuff that you get. You know, it's not necessarily just a rinse and repeat system that you get. It's about finding out what support you need and how best to implement that into the business that either you're about to start or you're already running. So yeah, it was good to hear your take on that experience so far.
Yeah, one thing I think I suppose I searched out. I wanted everything we do is virtual purely because of location, with the travel time. But I personally wanted a face-to-face, and yes, I appreciate that costs more because it should do. Anybody thinks it doesn't needs to have a strong hard look in the mirror. I've tried to do some, right, here's X amount of money, here's your 3-month course, 90 days you get your money back, those kind of bits and pieces. But it's literally a click go. It don't work for me. Like, for me personally, I almost need, and I probably could do with a little bit more even, especially at the moment with what's going on in personal life, of accountability, and somebody going, look, mate, you said you're going to do these 3 things, you've only done one of them. What's happening with the other 2? Actually, do you know what, mate? This has happened in my life in the last 2 weeks. Okay, fair dues. That's fine. Right, we'll push them back, but they need to be done. And I probably personally still need a little bit more of that as when I reflectively look back. But I wanted that face to face. I wanted a person, not a computer in front of me, which I'm willing to pay more of because, again, I coach. I understand and appreciate the value that I can add to my clients, even though some might not until they've had the first couple of sessions. I understand and appreciate what that brings by having face-to-face or virtual stuff, albeit because of location. That it's worth looking at that kind of stuff.
It was really interesting to sit back and listen to. Yeah, that was good. And there was some really good benefits in there if people are looking for coaches and mentors. It's different for different people as well. Like, I'm glad you honed in on a specific area that you wanted the help with, because it's not everything that people need. It tends to be maybe 1 or 2 parts of their business needs sharpening up, and that'll really make it fly. And I think the tethering thing, like you summed it up well there, the tethering thing, having done thousands of mentor sessions over the years, that really is important, because some of it is just about keeping people on the path. For me, it really is. Like, a lot of the time they know what to do. It's not that, it's that they don't do it. And it's just about bringing them back to the journey and back to that path and making sure they keep going forwards, even if it's only baby steps. It's still forwards.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point of it. Cool. I think I'm out of topics today, and I'm sort of semi-happy about that because I'm absolutely roasting. But not that the chat hasn't been really valuable. I think it really has. And again, if you're there's a couple of people I think would really benefit from listening to this. If you're an S&C coach, to hear a part of that world and what's involved in it. And also if you're a new coach of any kind, a PT, to listen to the journey that you've been through and are still on and still pushing on with. I think there's been some really good insights in there. And in terms of working with you, I just want to say thanks for being an awesome client up to this point and beyond. And I'm super confident you'll get I'm super confident you'll get everything you want for the future.
Touch wood.
But I think we'll sign off with that one today. Before we do, just tell everybody where they can find the Golf PT. So Instagram handles, websites, anything else like that, where they can locate you.
So first and foremost, normally not on the fairway on a golf course, but that's a different matter. It's at the Golf PT on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. So yeah, all through there, dude.
Cool. All right. So we'll sign off for today.
No, thank you.
Thanks, Ray. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you all next week.
Cheers, Ray.
Hello and welcome along again to the ProFit podcast on a scorching June afternoon. It's 30 degrees outside and we've got another interview for you today. I'm your host, Paul Campy, and my co-host is here with me, Matt Robinson. Say hi.
Hello, everyone. I hope you are well. I hope it's still this sunny by the time this episode goes out.
Yeah, good luck. I think it's supposed to be one day. And we've got another brilliant guest for you today. We've got guest after guest after guest at the minute, and this is another really good conversation with a mentoring client of mine, somebody who isn't in the PT world, has been a strength and conditioning coach to a high level, very highly qualified, very technically strong coach, and has in the last 12 months has started his own self-employed business as the Golf PT. And this is a chap called Ray Jakeman. And I really enjoyed this conversation. What about you, Matt?
Yeah, I thought it was fantastic. I think some of the best bits were actually where we weren't talking about S&C or PT at all. It was actually more about what goes on outside of it around parenthood and conversations you have with loved ones and sort of life priorities and things like that. That they were the things that I enjoyed most, just sitting back and listening and chipping in here and there. I thought they were the bits that I'm going to take away most from this conversation.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think obviously I know Ray from working with him, but for people who are trying to, as his analogy in the conversations he uses, spin a lot of plates, I think there's some really good learnings in there for people today. So sit back, relax, get a brew, and listen to Ray Jakeman, the Golf PT.